Good morning, everybody. This is Robin Ayub from the Localization Fireside Chat, and welcome to another episode. Today, we are recording episode number 92, and I'm dressed in Christmas look, and I have my guest of honor today, Allison from Gala. Also, we're both in Christmas attire as much as we can, I guess, while we record the episode here. And a few days before Christmas, I thought we'll get into the spirit, have a conversation, get to know Allison and Gala a little bit, shed some light on that wonderful organization that everybody knows and everybody engages with. For those who don't know Gala, so we can get some education on the go and tell you what the future holds for our industry, from a Gala perspective. So, Allison, welcome to the channel.
Thank
And
you.
good to meet you face to face finally. I know we exchanged emails, but that's my first time meeting you face to face. No harm in that. We're both having a coffee. We're having a conversation this morning. So welcome to the channel.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, and it's great to meet you, at least online, this way. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And Allison, just for those, let's get started with our getting to know you first, if you don't mind, for the audience to get to know you and get to know a little bit about Gala. So tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind me asking that. And for those who don't know you, probably you have a lot of people that know you very well.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Okay, I'm Allison Furch. I'm the executive director at Gala, and I've been at Gala it'll be 15 years in January. And I started there doing events and then grew that portfolio into more programs. And then about almost 7 years ago, moved into the executive director position. And my background is in association management. I don't consider myself a localization professional, but now that I've been around it for 15 years, I've learned a lot, obviously. But I would say I think of myself first as an association manager. And prior to this, I had a separate life in library science. And let's see, I live in the US, smack in the middle. After spending about 20 years in Seattle area, I'm now in the Denver area, where I'm learning to appreciate the sunshine and also the snow, of course. Let's see, what else? I'm an athlete. Always have been, usually swimming and water polo in college. And I have 3 kids, married to a cool guy for almost 30 years. And I love reading and I like crocheting. Makes me sound kind of old, but there it is. And I love this industry because we'll talk about it more, I'm sure, but it's this intersection of business and culture and language and technology. And I just think it's a cool place to be.
Which, speaking of the industry, and we say on this channel, like everybody has a story, right? So, including myself, what drew you to the industry? Is there a story behind this, or how did you fall into it?
It's not an interesting story, I'm afraid to say, but I always had an interest in language and culture. I studied Spanish, through college. I did a study abroad program when I was younger. And so I was always interested in language and culture, but I never thought about making it a career path. And in fact, I didn't for many years. I took a hiatus from work while I had young kids. And when I returned to work and I wanted to go back to association work, I was just looking for association jobs and Gala came up. And I knew a little bit about localization because my husband's a software developer. And so that was something he had talked about, or I don't know, I just knew about it. So when I saw the job post at Gala, I thought that could be cool. And I applied. And that's how I found myself here.
And 15 years later, I guess I see from your LinkedIn profile, you've been involved with Gala for about 15 years now. So
yeah, yep.
Tell us about your journey in Gala, if you don't mind. I know there was some progression there, as you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that Gala is like a small staff organization right now. Well, when we're fully staffed, there's 5 people that are full-time, more or less, and then a handful of contractors with specific roles. But back then, I think I might have been the third hire, like the third staff person. And they hired me part-time to begin with. And it was really to support the brand new annual conference. So they had hosted their first conference in 2009 in Cancun. I joined in January of 2010, arguably to kind of shepherd that program specifically and to support the annual conference. So that was the focus for the first couple of years. But Gala started to grow and we started to add different programs. And I just gradually took on more responsibility, went full time, and then started to manage additional programs and then continued to do the conference as well. So that's really one of my favorite programs at Gala, of course. And then when my predecessor decided to leave, the board and I kind of sat and looked at each other for a minute and said, do we want to do this? Do you want to hire me? Do I want this role? And we all said yes, and here we are.
There you go. And so, you know, I would have thought like Gala would have more staff, but you're saying five? How do you guys
Yeah,
do this with five?
well, we like to say that we're small but mighty. How we do it is that we we only hire rock stars. We hire super smart, hardworking, responsible, driven, accountable, amazing humans. And that's how we make it happen because everybody's super dedicated and they like their job. And I have endeavored to make Gala a great place to work so that people don't want to leave and don't leave. Isabella, our content strategist, is our like newest member, and she's hitting 4 years this year.
Okay. And so does that mean that, each of you will have multiple responsibilities, you know, going cross responsibilities just to help each other? I mean, I used to be the president of the Canadian Language Industry Association. You probably know that. And I'm still involved. I'm still on the board, but we always struggled with that, hiring full time. So what ended up being is, and we'll talk about other associations in a second. What ended up happening in my experience is that we become a working board. So the board now becomes they're doing the actual work, communication, membership management, anything else, finance, etc. So you must have like the board, I'm assuming, still involved, but the staff is doing most of the work, I'm assuming.
Yeah, for sure. We have the sort of traditional separation between the board and the staff where they're really meant to be strategic and focus on governance, whereas the staff is focusing on the operations. I mean, we're strategic too. Obviously, when you spend as much time as we do, you have opinions and insights and ideas. But where you started that question, when you're in a small staff, yes, everybody has to wear a lot of hats. We have this expression like we do everything from soup to nuts. And sometimes I'll tell people that, yes, I write strategy documents and I lick envelopes. We don't actually lick envelopes often, but that's the spirit of small staff. And it takes a special person who's willing to do that and to not be bothered by having to do some drudgery in addition to the more exciting elements of their job.
I'm assuming the job description is a loose description of what you're expected to perform on the job, and the rest of it is we do what the team is asking us to do. I guess so. That was in my case. So.
Yes, I mean, I think we're pretty sophisticated actually for a small staff organization. And we do have, I mean, we have specific roles. We have a RACI matrix. We do often have to like redefine that because some areas can get blurry because we do a lot of collaboration, of course, amongst ourselves. But it's, I think, a well-oiled machine. And we're about to onboard a new staff member in
Mhm.
at the beginning of February who will focus on events and programs specifically. And we all are so excited.
It's going to alleviate some pressure, huh?
Yeah.
So for the audience, that's the portion where we're getting to know Gala a little bit here, and that's why the questioning is around what is Gala from a makeup perspective, from a the staffing perspective, who manages it. Now, you mentioned it's a nonprofit organization, right? Did I get that right? So you must be working on cost recovery, I'm assuming.
Actually, we're in a great position, and sometimes one of the things that I say is, or remind the board is like nonprofit is not a business model; it's just a tax designation
Okay.
for
Oh, I
us
see.
at the moment. I would say we operate like a small business. We appreciate and are grateful when we have a budget surplus. I mean, we build a balanced budget every year, and when we have a budget surplus, that's great because we can put it into reserves and feel good about that. But we're what's called a trade association, and so we're nonprofit, but we're not a charitable
Oh, I
organization. So
see.
people think about nonprofits, the first thing that comes to mind is charitable organizations, the Humane Society or humanitarian organizations. That's not us. We're a professional organization, and so we do operate like a small business. We do risk analysis, we do strategic planning, we do all kinds of things that a lot of small business owners are familiar with.
Absolutely. And so let's step back a little bit, Allison, if you don't mind. So, what's your view on that whole association? I want to say scene in our localization industry. Like you know that there are many associations in our industry. So, what's your view on that? And where does Gala sort of, I hate to use differentiate itself, sounds so cliche, but what makes, for the lack of better expression, what makes you different?
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, the differentiator with Gala is that we're global. There are a few other organizations that have a global scope, but the similarity stops there because then their mission is something else. So if we're going to talk true like language industry associations, most of our peers are regional or national, like CLIA, Canadian Language Industry Association, that's a national association. The ATC in the UK, we're all friends. Like I say friends, we all support one another. And in fact, that's one of my annual goals for 2025 is to kind of get back in touch with everybody. We did this really cool thing during the pandemic where we just all got on a Zoom call and talked about what was happening and our challenges. Gala probably has 20 different partner associations where we don't have any kind of formal partnership or governance like chapter structure, anything like that. We're all independent, but we support one another. And to me, this is becoming more and more important because associations are being squeezed in a way now, and we see this across industries as well. The original purpose of associations, going back 20, 30, 50 years, or some associations are much older than that, it was kind of one of the only professional communities that these people could belong to and one of their best sources of information. That's all changed mainly with the internet, and they have a lot of options for community. They have a lot of options for content and professional development. And so there's competition, to plain and simple, for associations. I think what sets all of us apart, not just Gala, is that we're non-commercial, we're non-biased, we're here for everybody. We're trying to support the growth and advancement and professionalism of the people in our industry. And we don't, other than that altruistic mission, we're not out to make money. We're not out to sell a product. I mean, sure, we're selling registrations and memberships and things like that. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of associations, although I do have concern for the future of associations in the long term.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, from your perspective, just to we already know, as you told us, about the benefit, what sets you apart from an association perspective on the global stage. And you're right, Gala is a global company. Meanwhile, the majority of the other associations are local or regional or dedicated to specific task or specific feature in our industry, phone interpretation, etc. So, from your perspective, and looking at your membership, membership demographics and the membership in general, can you talk to us about what in your view, based on the, what your members tells you, what are the benefits? What do they see in Gala? What do they get out of Gala in your opinion?
That's a great question. And what I'll say too is right now the board is working on kind of clearly defining that value proposition for each of our different segments. I'll answer that in 1 second. But one of the challenges for us, but also what is cool and unique about Gala, is that we have a diverse audience. So you asked about demographics. So for example, when Gala was founded, it was really mainly small LSPs, owner managed businesses. And then it grew. And now, of course, we have super agencies. We have enterprise side localization teams, localization departments, and we have consultants and we have academic institutions. So demographics wise, that's actually it's challenging for us, but it's an advantage because it gives them access to one another, which can be really helpful. So if you actually can facilitate conversations between clients and their suppliers, when you've removed that pressure of doing a sale or pleasing a customer, now they can just talk about business. I think that's really useful. So what I'll come back to is community. And I think what people love about Gala is that it's a professional community where you can find people to talk to about the problems that you're facing because they're facing them too, and they might have a solution. And for whatever reason, we've cultivated it. It's serendipity, a little bit of both. We have this reputation for openness and willingness to share knowledge and not, lock it down and call it some, proprietary advantage or whatever. So to me, community is the biggest value, but it's hard to quantify that. I would say that the other thing that's wonderful about Gala is that we're non-biased, we're non-commercial, we're egalitarian. And so I don't care if you have 10 staff members or 5,000 staff members, we're going to give you the same seat at the table. And I think, the last piece would just be that we're focused on technology, of course, but we are focused on the human that's in the picture. So the human in the in the picture is kind of what we're focused on. We have this saying that we're like future oriented but human focused.
So that was a very good point, which is I've been talking about it on this channel for a while now. I remember for, like been doing this business development and sales and tech for many years. So my career span, I don't know, 40 years now. And I've seen many associations in various industries. And one thing that struck me about our industry, the localization industry, the not so much willingness to share information, to learn from one another. And if you ask for a white paper in our industry, that's my impression, my personal impression, guys, don't shoot me. So my personal impression is when you ask for a white paper in our industry, it becomes a marketing material. It's I'm going to put my pitch out in that white paper, and it doesn't get down to the actual specifics around problem solution. That's what paper generally talk about, and what was the benefit out of it. So I'm just so intrigued with when you said we encourage openness. Did that work? How did it work?
I think it just comes back to the people because like yes, we encourage that and we discourage commercialism and salesiness at our conferences and in our content. We have slapped people on the wrist, so to speak, for doing that. That said, I really think that it's like a self-selecting crowd of people that are generous with their knowledge and they know that this is a place where they'll find other people like that. Like I say, some of it could have just been serendipity and luck, but I think a lot of it goes down to the original vision and purpose of Gala, bringing this community together. And it's like a culture that as new people come in, you transmit that culture to the new people, and we try to do that at our events with member orientations, things of that nature.
So, just for the audience who don't know Gala, again, we're trying to, introduce Gala to a broader audience. That's what my channel is. Most of the audience that comes to see our channel are generally outside the industry. We have a lot of the industry followers, of course, but I try to market to outside the industry in my channel just to teach, educate, and inform as much as we can about our somewhat obscure industry outside of our circles. So, for those who don't know Gala well, tell us a little bit about some statistics about your about the association, like member.
Sure.
How do you measure that stuff? Members, revenue? I don't know how you do that.
All kinds, yeah, all kinds. We have a pretty sophisticated kind of data management. I've got a data program manager actually on staff. Jessica is awesome and helps us keep track of everything. So big picture, first I should say, I don't even know if we said it, it's Globalization and Localization Association Gala. And you can see why we always refer to it as Gala. So we have got about 350-ish institutional organizational members, which means about 4,000 plus individuals that receive membership benefits through their company, through their school, or through their department at a big enterprise. Our budget is somewhere in the range of about 1.3 million each year. Changes a little bit depending on a few things. We have probably about a dozen programs that we run. Most of them are focused on professional development for people in the industry. We have a lot of free stuff. Most of the content on our website is free. And then we offer our programs to members, but also to outsiders because not everybody's company can afford to join Gala or wants to join Gala, but those individuals can still participate in, for example, a Gala Academy course or attending a webinar or coming to the conference. We measure our program metrics carefully. We look at them every year, which is actually what we've just been doing here at the end of December. What else can I tell you? Demographics. We've got members in more than 60 countries. I would say that the vast majority are in North America and Europe, and then a large segment in South America. Fewer in Asia and Australia, for example, but we're truly global. And I would say something like 50% of the language services suppliers, the language services companies, are smaller businesses, small, medium-sized businesses, probably with revenues under 5 million. Then, of course, at the other end, we've got like big super agencies, but those are a smaller segment. And about 15% of the membership are what you would consider like enterprise side or client side, from companies like Dell and Nintendo and Booking.com and Deezer and companies that have sophisticated localization operations already inside their companies. That's off the top of my head
That's okay.
about
That's
our
okay.
demographics,
Very well.
regions, and sizes and things. Yeah.
It's not a quiz. I'm just trying to understand how the size and some ideas on the demographics of your organization, which is great. Thanks for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it. Now, let's switch gears a little bit, if you don't mind, Allison. I know you were in Montreal not too long ago, and so tell us what happened in 2024, including Montreal,
Mhm.
and we'll talk about 2025 in a second here.
Okay. Well, I'll start with Montreal because that was fun. We host an event we call it Gala Roadshow. And the intention of Gala Roadshow is to take the Gala conference experience and theme and take it on the road
Is that like some
to a
sort of a
couple.
mini
Yeah,
show?
it's super mini. I mean, half day and like a tenth of the size, you know. And we work with our members in these locations. So we hosted one in Montreal, very beginning of October, and we worked with the Canadian Language Industry Association on that one and collaborated kind of with the content. And we tried to focus that one on concerns in the Canadian market specifically. It was great. It was well attended and some really interesting speakers. So 2024, I would say that was kind of a pilot year for Gala Roadshow. We're going to try it again next year. We haven't selected our cities yet, but we'll continue that and try to grow it and improve it. We launched another program pilot called Gala Innovates, and the purpose of that is really to look at innovations and not only technology innovations, but other flavors and varieties as well. And that looked kind of like a webinar, but with a very specific focus. We did that about 3 times. We also had Gala Academy is another program that we do once per quarter with a very specific focus, and it's a cohort-based learning with one person who will kind of assemble a team of experts to talk about different aspects of a topic. Could be sales, could be, we did a really successful one on operational data. And obviously the conference in Valencia in April was probably our most successful conference in terms of attendees, number of delegates, the number of sponsors and exhibitors. It was a very great, strong, healthy post-COVID conference. And then we have a constant stream of other content that Isabella is our content strategist and just is amazing the people that she gets to speak, to our audiences in the webinar series or to write articles. So 2024, I would say, was a nice, solid, introduced a couple of new programs. We didn't do a lot of like marketing and PR. We were sort of internally focused on just delivering really good quality programs to the members, the community.
And I do hope this podcast will be, helping a gala in
Yeah,
the PR campaign.
I
I
hope
hope it
so.
sheds some light on the conversation going forward in 2025. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, you make a good point, and you talk about your audience tending to be outsiders. And here's what is interesting to us. We're observing that like localization and translation used to be, and interpretation used to be very niche specific. It was a closed club of people who had trained specifically for that, these subject matter experts and specialists in language. Now, with the way technology is transforming everything, it's just as likely that somebody who's been doing global marketing is going to get handed the responsibility for their company's localization. And they're thinking, where do I even start? There's the strategy, there's the data, there's the technology, there's the people. Where do I even go? So I think organizations like Gala are great for these people that are kind of on the outside now starting to come in. And that's where we're going to focus in 2025. We want to try to reach some of those audiences and say, listen, you don't have to do this alone because people before you have done this, and there's a process and there's a way to do this, and there's a community here who can help you figure it all out. And so we'll continue a lot of the same professional development programs in 2025. We're going to come back to Montreal and host our annual conference there in April. What else? Gala Innovates, hopefully we're going to see that leveling up. And then I want to mention another program which I didn't talk about, which is it's basically our industry intelligence arm, business intelligence and data and market research. And no shade on CSA research because they're amazing. They're also expensive, and not everybody can access that. So Gala started this past year doing a series of market surveys and then the reports. And so we did 3 last year. not small, but there's usually about 150 responses, quality responses that we can work with. And then my data program manager, Jessica, is working on doing the analysis and then the write up. We look at things like economic indicators and business performance. We did a special one on AI, the use of AI, implementation, policy, staffing, anything about AI. And then we also did another one on people operations, so kind of the HR side of the localization industry, or even what we call it is changing. Anyway, so that one we want to grow also in 2025 because we think it could be super useful, obviously for our members, but also the larger community.
So, Alison, can I understand from this or deduct from this strategy that you try to serve your members, which they are localization industry members? With you mentioned that there are a few that they're not. They come from enterprise, and they probably have internal translation department or localization department that's as big as probably mid-size localization company in our industry, right? So you can consider them localization industry to some extent, and or at the same time, you're probably trying to address the buyer, the consumer of our localization industry as well by providing information about our industry that perhaps sheds some light on their buying decision. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And so going through this, and like you've got in our industry, there's two already. You mentioned CSA, but there's the other one, NIMSI, which is well known. Renato is and his team. There's Slater, Florian, and his team as well. And market research for you is like a strategy going forward to add to Gala as a necessity, as a revenue stream. Where did you come up with that strategy to provide that service?
Well, we've been asked for years, really, by our members to provide this because they want an alternative to some expensive, really expensive reports. And just to put it in context, we were selling our report to non-members for $100, and it's like a 30-page report with incredible data and charts and graphs, and it's really affordable. So, like I said, I really respect those organizations, and we're all friendly with one another. But yes, I think that there's a need for this, which we saw. They asked us specifically, and we have a unique ability to reach the community because even if we only have 4,000, people that are identify as members, there are another 12,000 that are in our community and follow us and are interested in what we do that we also have access to. And so when we're collecting data, we have this rich sort of pool to draw from. And it's seemed like an unleveraged asset for Gala. And we're trying to change that. And like I said, last year was more or less year one. Next year will be year two. We're growing, trying to improve it, level it up. Seems like
It's great. I mean, look, I mean, if you're, it's like everybody else, I guess, like every service provider, and I'm assuming in this case, you would be considered a service provider for your members and for your audience. You look for opportunity, and if this opportunity can, fills a gap, that's what you're trying to do. And kudos for doing such thing, because you're right. 19,000 companies in our industry, not everybody can afford a $100,000 market research study, right? So some of them cannot afford that. They need access to some data, and here you go. I mean, you're making that happen for them. So that's great. Now, looking forward to, we didn't talk about this a lot, but I would like to get your opinion on, the metamorphosis of our industry that we're going through right now. And, everybody talks about AI, like, it's in every conversation and every, you're having a breakfast at a restaurant somewhere, somebody mentioned AI, like it's crazy. Like it's taken the world by a storm, not just in our industry. I mean, all the knowledge base economics going to be impacted by this, and not just knowledge base, every other industry. But to a large extent, our industry seems to, from the read that I did, that's, I guess, episode number 93, and every one of them we're talking about AI, it sounds like everybody's running frantic about this. And I don't know why. I feel like it's an opportunity for everybody. I feel like there's a huge amount of innovations that could take place. We've been given a blank sheet of paper that you can write whatever you want on it. And it sounds like that's not the case. A lot of people are, jittery about it. What's your read on that whole metamorphosis?
I think that it's a process, right? For people to first view this as a disruptor and to be afraid and to feel that level of uncertainty, and then you're waiting for implementation stories, and you're waiting for the hype to die down and for everything to become real. And I think we're now like at the end of the hype cycle, and we're now getting to the place where some companies, especially larger companies with more resources, have actually done some implementation. And actually, that's one of the things that Gala Innovates is trying to focus on. It's like, sorry, we also launched a new special interest group. We have special interest groups where the members can talk about what matters to them. And there's a new one about AI implementation, AI use cases. So we're trying to get it from hype to practical. So I feel like, yes, there was this like almost terror, at the beginning, but we're seeing people now settle in and see it the way you portrayed it, which is, hey, this is an opportunity and we want to stay in business and we want to evolve and we want to innovate. And yes, there's going to be growing pains, but we're ready for it and we're here for it. So that's what we're starting to see actually. And I talked about the Gala Business Barometers, and the AI one specifically will be repeated I think we're launching it in February, but we also kind of get the tenor, like, how are you feeling about this?
Mhm.
And about the future with your job and things like this. And I expect we're going to see a little more optimism this year than we did last year and certainly the year before. What I want to say too is that, like, I love that it's part of the zeitgeist and part of the sort of public awareness now, because it's brought language. Because even if a person doesn't really know what a large language model is, just the word language is in there for them. So it's brought language into everybody's radar. And I think it's an opportunity for our industry to begin to show off about, we've been doing this for years, actually, and we can help you. And the other thing that I think is cool about it is that it's bringing up topics like accessibility and language access, where the sort of accessibility movement has also brought a little more importance to language as a component of accessibility. And certainly we know that we can reach more people, work with more content than ever before, and that's exciting.
And you know what? I feel like to a certain extent, correct me if I'm wrong, AI has equalized a bunch of things, equalized knowledge, equalized distribution of information. Of course, like everybody else said, agree, and AI is not an autopilot yet. It's not like it's on its own. You have to have some sort of a guidance with this, because you still have to be involved as a human in the output, in the outcome of AI. And for those buyers, out there, again, that's what my channel, most of the audience are. You feels like sometimes you want to download the app, get the job done, and walk away with zero cost. And
Yeah.
it feels to me like it's a pipe. To me, it feels like a pipe dream. I don't know, but I mean, what do I? I'm not in somebody else's shoes who's making those decisions. But where I'm standing, it's a pipe dream, and I hope some days, 20 years from now, I don't know how long it would take us to think that whole cognitive thing becomes a reality. You think of something, and all of a sudden it happens. But we're far away from that now, and I feel like you human still need to be involved, still need to be aware of what you're delivering to your audience. It doesn't matter who these audience are. Have you done any work in Gala on human in the loop, kind of an environment? What's your read on that?
Yeah, well, I would say our position is the same as yours. This is not ready to just push a button and walk away. And I think one of our challenges has been educating buyers. And we know that our members have been challenged by that as well. When their clients are saying, we expect you to use AI and we want our costs, cut in half. We have to educate them about what's possible. Remaining, having a human in the loop is, yes, we agree, is super critical. We talk about these kinds of topics. We'll do webinars on, very specific scenarios and use cases. We talk about quality. We talk about, what the changing roles are for the humans in this kind of new era. So our goal is really to prepare people for the realities of where we are now and like what's happening next. And it's hard, obviously, to do that because nobody quite knows what's going to happen next. But I think we had a Gala Innovate session earlier in this week, and Jochen Hummel, who's a legend in the industry, mentioned that the question we should be asking isn't whether AI has now achieved human level. It's like, is AI as good as your average human translation? Because humans can be mediocre too. So I think that people understanding what's fit for purpose matters a lot. And that's part of what our members are trying to teach. And then kind of taking this in a different direction for a second, I think that the other opportunity that's cool is like set the language and the translation component aside for a second. AI can help people with business operations in dozens of other ways. And so I think this next level thinking is like, it's not just thinking about translation as a discrete activity.
Hmm.
It's thinking about that thing that happens in combination with your content creation, with multimodal content dissemination. It's like, don't just think about this as a standalone thing anymore. It's now part of a ecosystem and a
Correct.
whole complicated workflow,
Absolutely. And you,
which AI totally supports,
of
right? Like think
course.
about knowledge graphs, this is more of a content thing. So when I was joking earlier about like, what do we even call the industry anymore? There's truth to that because you can't really call it, we don't want to call it translation and localization. It's more than that. It's like multilingual communication or multilingual content operations.
Correct.
What is coming?
And you know what? You brought a very good point because I interviewed on this channel Don De Palma, about 6, 7 months ago now, and one of his opening remarks was, "We are living in a post-localization era," and I'm quoting him on this channel. He's saying that, and at the time when he said that to me, it kind of took me back a little bit. I'm thinking like, is this even true? I don't know. Maybe if you're too futuristic at that point. But now, after everything that's happening, I think we're on the march. I think, and because to get there, it's the reason is because I interviewed a whole bunch of people after that, and they're talking about creating content in language. So no need to transform the content anymore from one language to another. We will get eventually to a point where you create the content in its original language. Because one of the main, I speak 3 languages. One of the main complaints about what I read in another language is because it feels it's translated. It does not feel it's written in the native language. And I did a talk in Saudi Arabia with a group of people a few weeks ago, and that's the whole topic. I did a Gen AI paragraph from English to Arabic, and there was a room full of audience. I said, critique it, and they punched holes in it like became a Swiss cheese.
Exactly.
And to me, it read okay, but to the person who is reading this, who's more familiar with the language than I am, they are immediately detecting that this is not originally written content. So if we are going to be on the march of no content transformation anymore and original content all the time, I think we're now talking about content. We're not talking about translation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, a lot of people on the outside, they don't care to talk about translation. They're talking about content. For them, it's like it's their technical documentation, their manual, their marketing materials, their legal documents, whatever. And they don't, it's content to them. And they just need it to be, understandable and native in different languages. So to me, it's curious, like, the next level will be that like we're sim shipping in 17 languages. It's not like it's English first and then we do this transformation. And in fact, a couple of years ago, we've got a member, Rotary International, and Patrick Nunez is the head of their team there. And they actually made this intentional move probably 5, 6 years ago to put localization and translation people with kind of the content creation people. And they started to create some of their content in multiple languages from the get-go, which is cool. And
Yeah,
I think, yeah, is
totally.
really more what the outsiders want to talk about. They don't care about fuzzy matches and distance, whatever. They don't care.
Yeah.
They just want it, they want their content to be transformed, for global audiences, and that's what matters.
Yeah, and achieve a certain goal, certain business goals. What's my ROI?
Exactly.
And they're asking, connect the dots for me. Make this content achieve what my business goals are. And I'm
Exactly.
not in it to write the next Molière or Rousseau kind of a literature here. What we're trying to do is trying to drive business forward. And if
Yeah,
we achieve what it needs to achieve, then we achieved our goal, I guess, right?
exactly. And if you can increase your market share in some Latin American country that you have targeted, like, great. That's
Yeah.
what they care about.
Absolutely. Now, we're coming up on the hour here. Still have a few minutes with you. I can't believe the time
No,
flies
time flies.
when we're talking to interesting topic, interesting people. And I want to leave the space for you to give us a few last parting comments on Gala, this episode, if you wish. or anything else that you like to share with the audience.
Gosh, okay. Well, I think we're at a really interesting time in the language industry. I think we're going to stop calling it the language industry within a couple of years, and it's going to be something else. It's definitely, you use the word metamorphosis, and I agree. And we're still in the cocoon and still growing, and kind of we're going to see what will emerge. That poses interesting challenges for an association like Gala, who has always had a very clear audience, but now that audience is changing a bit, also trying to deliver value as notion of value and what matters to them changes. So these are interesting times, challenging times, but not with a negative connotation, I wouldn't say, a positive connotation. I would just say that I really believe in the power of a professional community to elevate both individuals with their sense of competence, belonging, and sort of prowess in their job, and it connects them with people that are like them. And in this industry, that's sometimes hard. We call them sometimes lonely localizers because they might be the only person in some big business that cares about language, and they're like advocating for it, and they're trying to get people to support this and understand that it's not a cost center, that it is driving critical business goals. And so I just think the power of community is pretty useful and important. And just know that there's communities all over the place, regionally, nationally, globally, where you're going to connect with smart people who are working on the same problems and will happily share with you what they're learning and what they're failing at, what they're succeeding at.
So I want to thank you very much, Allison, for joining me today on this conversation. I hope you had as much fun as I did. It was a pretty interesting conversation to be chatting with you with, and also to meet you the first time. And for our audience, I want to thank you for attending this call, for listening in, if you're coming in on our podcast channels, and for viewing us on YouTube. I really appreciate it. And thanks to you, in 2024, we had one of our videos reached and 50 watched hours. And this is unheard of in a niche environment, that somebody sit through a conversation such as we're having today and listen to it for a complete hour and do it, multiple audience, of course, and reach 1,250 hours of watched hours. Congratulations to Bruno Herman, and the podcast that we've done together, who got us to that. And the topic was AI, by the way. And so it's an interesting topic as well, that everybody drawn to it. To our audience, from me and Allison Furch, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday to all, and we'll see you on the other side in 2025. Thank you so much for listening in, and I'll see you next time.